Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, May 25th. It's at 7:30 p.m. or thereabouts. Tonight is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the day or for the week. It's a public hearing tonight. We also have a general meeting following the public hearing and a couple of new applications. Jennifer Leahy, are you here too? We have a caller one. I thought that might be Jennifer. Okay. Carrie Gately is not going to be present tonight. She has an engagement with her two boys. And Jennifer Leahy, we expect her to arrive shortly.
Correct.
So with that said, let's start with the public hearing. We have two items going to open at the same exact time. The first one is a proposed amendment to the Darien Zoning Regulations, COZR number 2-2021, put forth by Jeffery Brown at 26 Beach Hill Road. We saw this application a month ago, 2 weeks ago?
April 27th.
April 27th.
And then it was continued to May 4th. There was no testimony taken on May 4th. It was immediately kicked to tonight, which is May 25th.
Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. Okay.
Right.
Then you want me to open up the other one first?
You want to do the zone change and special permit together?
Whatever you suggest.
Yeah, let's do it together.
Okay. So the second item we're going to open up in the hearing is a special permit application number 320, Jeffery Brown, 26 Peach Hill Road. Just as an overview, and I'll pass over to Jerry for a second. This is a proposed house that got a site plan approval about a year ago. Is that right?
That's correct.
About a year ago, a site plan approval to build a proposed house with I think a detached garage and some other stuff inside the garage. Now they want to build the two items together and keep some to here. But with that said, Jeremy, why are we here on this one?
Sure. You may recall at the April 27th hearing, the commission had about an hour's worth of testimony on both the zoning regulation amendment, which would allow two houses temporarily on one lot by special permit, as well as the special permit request from Mr. Brown relative to that proposal. You may recall at that hearing, Mr. Brown's attorney, Wilder Gleason, discussed and presented his information on how the proposed amendment is consistent with the town plan of conservation and development. And he went into a little bit about the proposal and how they're going to pull together the construction of the house while the Browns live in the house. At that hearing, the neighbor at number 22 Peach Hill, Mr. Hardy, had some concerns which were voiced about the application. And since that time, material's been submitted by both Attorney Wilder Gleason on behalf of Mr. Brown, and that's a memo and paperwork dated May 19th. And Mr. Hardy and his representative, Attorney Tim Hollister, in paperwork dated May 24th, along with some photographs and emails. That brings us up to speed on where we are since the last hearing. I think it would be up to Wilder to discuss what's changed since the last time we're here, what's been supplemented, and get started from there.
Everyone can hear Jeremy okay, right? Great. Hey, Jennifer Leahy arrived.
Got it.
Fantastic. Wilder Gleason, welcome, sir. This is your application.
Thank you. We reviewed Mr. Hardy's email of May 5th. We consulted the architect, our engineer, P&Z staff. We reviewed various documents, and we modified the site plan that had been provided earlier to address a number of Mr. Hardy's concerns. And we submitted our response on the 19th, as was stated. I think what we'd like to do is ask Doug DeVesta to share his screen with you and review the changes he made in the site plan to address Mr. Hardy's concerns. And my thought would be then that Mr. Hardy and his counsel, Mr. Hollister, could then present whatever concerns they have, and that we would then respond.
Have you had the opportunity to have discussions with Mr. Hollister in advance?
We have had the opportunity. I frankly, we were pulling our application together and I submitted it. And then I figured there would be some discussion, but Mr. Hollister said, we'll just submit our response. And that's, so we didn't actually talk on this.
Okay, that's
Okay, Doug DeVesta, professional engineer, represent the applicants. Up on the screen here, you'll see a plan that was submitted, it's a revised plan that was submitted to the commission and to the neighbor, showing the revisions. Starting off is that one of the comments from Mr. Harding was that the stockpile was too close to the property line, so that's been moved back to behind the building setback line up in the we call it the westerly corner of the property. The other items that we changed, that we show construction, there was some questions regarding construction vehicle parking. We have two entrances to the construction site. One would be the one I'm pointing to right now, going up to the main house, and there's the parking courtyard in here. During construction, there's enough area in here for 5 parking spaces. And then down to the lower for the garage area and a lower parking area, we've got enough for at least 4 cars, stacking two and two. Each of these access ways will be off of the existing common driveway. Each will have a anti-tracking pad on the driveways to keep any mud from getting out onto the road. And the third area was a strip along the existing driveway to the Brown's residence, which is right about in this location here where the cursor is. We've got enough for 5 parking spaces. These parking spaces were laid out based on the Darien standards for parking stalls and parallel parking and perpendicular parking. So these are fairly, again, based on standards that the town has. Other parking areas could be, along the driveway, either to the courtyard, to the main house courtyard, or along the driveway to the garage. We've also, they talked about having some blind spots on the driveway, starting down along the entrance. This is to the far right where my cursor is. That's Peach Hill Road coming in. There's an area right in this area in here that some brush clearing, vegetation clearing can be done. Just trimming back some of the brush there, that will open up the sight, line of sight in that area. I'll show some photographs of that in a moment. The other area would be this hatch mark right through here on the curve. This dashed line that I'm pointing to right now is the property line. So most of that area would be cleared in the wetlands area and all on Mr. Brown's property. We did pass this plan to the EPC staff, Rich Jacobson, and he didn't see any issues with us clearing and trimming back some of the brush within the wetlands area, because again, it's going to grow back, and most of it's an invasive type of plantings anyway. So those are the areas that we are looking about, and those are the changes that we had discussed and looked at changing the plans. What I'd like to do is show you wrong one. Let's see, from the beginning. So this area here, where I'm standing right now, is looking up the driveway towards the construction entrance to the main house and the garage. So you can see, if you're coming out of the construction area where the garage and the house are, you've got a clear sight of line coming down to that curved area, several, probably 200 feet or so. The next shot here, this is looking back towards Peach Hill Road. You can see there's some vegetation right through here. If that gets trimmed back, we would be able to see, have a better sight line. This little cone right here is, just for reference, is the where the proposed gates to the driveway would be installed. And then this is looking back. This is now from looking up the driveway from Peach Hill Road again, clearing back some of this vegetation. Just by trimming it will provide a better sight distances in that area. Those are really the changes that we had had discussed. I will let go back to Wilder and then maybe have the applicant or the neighbor speak at this time.
Doug, could you just point out in the plan the bulge in the driveway?
Sure.
And that's halfway up the driveway.
Right. So there's a section right here. Let me blow it up a little bit more. So there's an area right about here. This is around 14.9 feet wide right through here. Most of the driveway is around 11.3. It varies in width, but this is the majority. This is the widest part of the driveway right in here. So two vehicles could come this area and they could pass each other without a problem. And I think another area that even Mr. Wilder talked about was if a car was coming in the driveway and you're right at this area here, one car can pull over into this driveway right here. It can pass. And the third area would be if a car is coming up the hill and being seen, it could pull off into Mr. Brown's existing driveway and allow the two cars to pass. Again, this area from approximately this point, let's see, right about here, the driveway is around 12 and a half feet wide, and it continues to be about 12 feet all the way on up to around the curve here, because it's about 13.5, right where the two driveways are coming into the common driveway.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. So we're waiting to hear from Mr. Hardy and his representatives.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about, Doug, because I've been up and down that driveway a couple of times too. I went out for a Sunday site visit.
Okay, good. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, no problem. Okay, with that said, I think there's a gentleman, Mr. Hollister's here. Great.
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Hollister, Bruce Chudwick says hello.
I'm sorry?
Bruce Chudwick says hello. I spoke to him yesterday.
And you associate with him in public? That's shameful, so.
Mr. Hollister used to work with Shipman and Goodwin, which is another firm. And his partner, or his ex-partner, or old colleague and myself are working on a big project together. Welcome, Mr. Hollister.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. I'm attorney Tim Hollister. I now work for Hinckley Allen in its Hartford office, and tonight I'm representing Cindy and Stephen Hardy. Mr. Hardy is on the call here. They live at 22 Peach Hill Road, the abutting property, and they are also the owners of most of the shared driveway between 22 and 26 Peach Hill, which is really the issue before us with regard to the site plan. Mr. Hardy is, I need to point out, not just an abutter and a resident of Darien, but he is also the managing partner of TVG Partners, which is an international real estate development and construction company with significant experience in safety and logistics in construction. So we're not putting him forward as an expert witness per se, but he does have professional experience in exactly what we're talking about. And so his perspective, I think, is quite not just valuable, but well-informed. I will start off by saying that, disputes between neighbors are always unfortunate, particularly here where at the start, at least, Mr. Hardy and Mrs. Hardy were supportive in concept of what Mr. Brown wanted to do. But in this case, frankly, the applicant brought the dispute on himself with what we believe, and I will explain as really an unjustified zoning regulation amendment proposal and a special permit application that is both procedurally defective and has several substantive flaws, which I will now go through. So let me start with the regulation amendment. And even though Attorney Gleason and his consultant just focused on the site plan, let's go back to the fact that this needs a regulation amendment. I got involved in this just a few days before your May 4th continuation, but I did go back and review the applicant's presentation to this commission in April. So in summary, just to bring you back to that presentation, Section 331 of the zoning regulations requires a building lot for every building. And Mr. Brown's proposal is to add a new section 405 sub H to allow the construction of a new home on a lot where the owner currently lives as an accessory use by special permit. And the regulation amendment was sought because historically in Darien, owners have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for variances to allow them to construct one residence while building another residence on the property. And those variances have generally been denied, mainly for lack of hardship. And Mr. Brown was in fact denied such a variance in 2020. There are all kinds of substantive problems with the regulation. First and foremost, an accessory use under the Darien Zoning Regulations, and this is consistent with every other accessory use regulation, zoning regulation that I've ever seen in 39 years as a land use lawyer. Accessory is customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use of the lot. Customary means it's common in the community. Incidental means it's small and subordinate to a principal use. As you know, the common understanding of an accessory use is a shed, a garden, home occupation, a greenhouse, sometimes a deck. But a new home, a new main building, a new principal use is not and cannot be incidental or subordinate to another main building or house. A new house is a principal use. So let's be very clear. The proposed regulation, in no uncertain terms, would allow two principal uses on the same lot at the same time. And as the fact that a slew of owners have applied for and been denied variances, a new main house built on the same lot is not only not customary by any stretch, it is essentially non-existent in the town of Darien, and that's for good reason, because there are lots of problems with doing so. So the proposed amendment is completely contradictory to the clear and accepted definition of what an accessory use is. Now, the regulation also has some substantive defects, mainly that in subsections little I through small Roman numeral 8, there are standards for the new dwelling, and there's a time period for the two dwellings, but the proposed regulation says nothing about protecting abutters or neighbors, nothing about access, nothing about the particular situation we have here, which is why this is so problematic. It says nothing about rear lots and shared driveways. And that's really the nub of this particular situation. So someone could come in with an application here and they don't have to give you any information about any of these very basic and very important safety and logistical issues. For example, in proposed sub H Roman numeral 4, it says adequate space to store construction materials, but there's no specification for setbacks, screening, fencing, or protecting of the neighbors. There's no required plan for logistics, and by the way, it's not contained in section 1000, which is your general regulation about special permits. It's not contained there either. Subsection 7 says the existing dwelling shall have its kitchen and cooking facilities removed, quote unquote, within 30 days after a certificate of occupancy is issued. Well, you're the zoning commission. You don't control when a certificate of occupancy or a temporary certificate of occupancy is issued. So you have the zoning commission and the zoning enforcement officer have no enforcement authority with respect to that standard. And by the way, what if the owner doesn't comply and they build the two houses and say, hey, why don't we just subdivide or re-subdivide and I'll sell off one of the houses? Your regulation doesn't address that situation. It leaves it wide open as far as I can see. There's no requirement for a time limit and there's no requirement for a performance bond. The applicant had justified the regulation as being consistent with your plan of conservation and development on the ground that it will provide diversity and affordability in Darien's housing stock. As charitable as I can be, that is so silly as to not deserve a response. So the application is a complete distortion of what an accessory use is, and no attention, no protection, no thought to a butter's neighbor's safety or logistics. Moving on to the special permit application. There is a notice defect, and I brought this up to Attorney Gleason 3 weeks ago. He apparently either doesn't agree or is willing to roll the dice, but 22 and 26 Peach Hill share a driveway, which is mostly located on the Hardy property. So Mr. Brown is proposing a special permit that will use the Hardy property for access to and staging to his property. The application needs Mr. Hardy's and Mrs. Hardy's consent. They did not get that. They apparently went on the assumption that since Mr. Hardy did not vocally object to their variance application, that he was on board. But the simple fact is that to file this special permit application, they need permission because the Hardy property is part of the land to be used for the special permit. In addition, the shared driveway agreement, which Attorney Wilder referred to several times in his May 19th filed written response, that talks about regular access to the two homes, but it doesn't cover construction or construction vehicles over what will likely be an 18 to 24 month construction process. There is also a notice defect in the sense that the notice letters that were sent by Attorney Gleason's office in mid-April and the published notices make no mention of 22 Peach Hill Road, the Hardy property. It is very basic land use law that if the notice of the hearing misdescribes the subject property, that notice is defective. If this matter goes to court, it is quite likely that the proceeding would be invalidated. And two other things, 1003.d of your special permit regulations requires a traffic study, which would have been a good idea here, unless waived by the commission. There has been no waiver and there has been no traffic study that I'm aware of. In addition, the consultant who just spoke before I did apparently uncovered yet another procedural defect, which is he said that they will go to the zoning commission for a permit to clear brush in wetlands. Well, if they need a wetlands permit to carry out their special permit, then they need to pull this application and go to the wetlands commission first and then come back to you if they get that permit. But if they need a wetlands permit, their zoning special permit application is now out of order. Out of the order in the sense that the wetlands commission permit has to be filed first, and you cannot act until you get a report from the wetlands commission. So those are all the defects in the application itself. And this is before we get to the issues with the site plan itself. Now, as Mr. Ginsburg said at the outset, on May 4th, the application was continued, and the purpose, which I discussed directly with Attorney Gleason, was so Mr. Brown and Mr. Hardy, assisted perhaps by counsel, could engage in a dialogue and come up with a consensus logistic plan. On May 5th, Mr. Hardy emailed Attorney Gleason, copying me, with a list of safety and logistical concerns and said explicitly in that email, which was consistent with my conversations with Attorney Gleason, that we were expecting an iterative process, a back and forth. Next thing we know, on May 19th, with no response from Mr. Gleason or his client to Mr. Hardy or me, they submitted a somewhat dismissive and inaccurate response directly to you with no input from the Hardys at all. And what can we do? It was already submitted, and I followed up with an email to point out that this was not a consensus document because we had not been given the input that we were promised. Before I turn it over to Mr. Hardy, I am constrained to mention at the beginning of this hearing, there was reference to a special needs child, which is always a sad situation. I hope this child is getting the attention and the help that is justified, but I hope you all know that that is not a justification for a land use application. That I'm kind of surprised that that was even brought up. But anyway, let me now ask Mr. Hardy as a property owner and one experienced in the field to go through his specific concerns and in addition to respond to the revisions to the site plan that were outlined a few minutes ago. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you. Perhaps we can go back to Doug DeVesta's site plan, and there's some new information that arose that I just learned as he was going through this, and I'd like to ask a few questions. Doug, is it possible for you to put that site plan back on the screen? Is he still here? Okay, so I guess my first question would be, and starting at the entrance to the driveway, the area where you were proposing to cut back the brush. I think I said in our response, we were actually in concept, we don't have an issue with it, but you know, in therein lies, I think, a lot of our concerns with this whole process is it's been somewhat secretive and we haven't really been included. And I would point out to you that it appears where your arrow is that you're proposing to cut back vegetation on our property. And as I said, you know, we're trying to be supportive of this and the Browns and their attempts to build this home. But, you know, it would just seem to be common courtesy that if you were going to cut vegetation down on our property, that you would at least seek our input. And so am I to understand that the proposal here is that you're going to cut down vegetation on our property? Doug, was that what you were suggesting?
I was suggesting trimming, not cutting it down, but trimming it back, so it would improve your site distance as well as the Browns and anybody coming in and out to your house and to the Browns' house. So just trimming it back,
well, I guess,
cutting it down.
Fair enough. Sorry, fair enough. So trimming or cutting or whatever, it's not even clear to us what is really being proposed. I would also ask, normally when we do this commercially, there would be a, you know, is this a temporary, are we cutting this down temporarily? Is it a long-term condition? And we would seem to, if it improves the visibility, it's probably improvement. But again, we haven't been consulted. No, I don't know what you're proposing. We don't know if you're going to propose replanting. And again, so there's really just a real dearth of information here. As I move up the road, there was, I believe you said that there was an easy ability to pass at the bump out. I don't know if we have the ability. I sent a photo with my wife and I were backed up while there was a Frontier vehicle in the way. There really isn't. I mean, you can get there if one car pulls over into slightly down the ditch. There is about a 15-foot spot where two cars can pass. But for those of you who if you've ever seen a dump truck or a concrete mixer, etc., they're quite a bit wider than a normal car. And therein lies one of our concerns is it may work for vehicles. It probably doesn't work for construction equipment. As I go further up the road, Doug DeVesta, Tim Hollister already mentioned the question about the removal of the invasives. I asked a question. It doesn't sound like it actually was approved in the response that we received. It said EPC had already approved it. I think what I heard tonight was EPC staff had said they didn't see a problem with it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that area is subject to upland review.
Yeah,
Lawyer,
Mr. Hardy,
is there a lawyer here?
Mr. Hardy, this is Tim Hollister. It's something you didn't, I didn't regret. I think at this point, the commission is looking for your comments, and then Mr. DeVesta and Mr. Gleason will respond. If you could just go through.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Fair enough. So the question then would be, if they are wanting to see it, again, don't have a problem with the concept at all, but there doesn't appear to be a plan here. So if there's going to be invasives removed, will there be native species put back in? If so, what does it look like? Is there a landscaping plan, etc.? If I move further up the road towards the parking area, it was a little unclear to me. I do appreciate the changes made with the topsoil pile, etc. In the response, it was not made clear to us where there's that long, what appears to be that whole shaded area appears to be parking, about half of which appears to be on our property, although the Browns do have an easement there. wasn't clear to me exactly what's happening there. I'm not as concerned with that, other than, we asked a question that wasn't answered as to how would they flatten that out, how would they keep snow out of there, would they restore it to its original condition, etc. I think my biggest concern that came out of just this evening is when we asked about where the construction entrances were going to be. In the response that we received several days ago, the response is that the contractor would figure it out. And I'm now hearing from the civil engineer, from Doug, that it's in fact going to be, they're proposing the construction entrance is going to be at the mouth of our driveway. Well, if you've seen that condition, and if you have any construction experience, you would know that that's probably the worst place you could put it. It's not to suggest there's not another place on this site plan where they could put it, but that is at the very steepest part of the hill, right at the mouth of our driveway, where our vehicles occasionally get stuck because if it hasn't been de-iced in the winter, it's a big congestion point. So that's not a smart place to put it. That's not to say that you couldn't put it somewhere else, but I'm just learning of this now and sort of reacting on the fly. So those are our sort of comments on what I've seen tonight. I think the larger concern we have here, aside from the secrecy of all of this, is pedestrian safety and access. And I'm sure we can work through, as I said, we would love to help the Browns figure this out, but I haven't seen anything that even seems concerned about pedestrian safety. And as we pointed out, and we provided to the commission emails from all of our neighbors that actually contradicted the response we got from the Browns, is there's quite a bit of children, quite a lot of activity on this road where people walking up and down, and there's been no consideration for that. It's sort of just get out of the way, and that's not acceptable. The other concerns we have revolve around access, and I believe the commissioners provided our detailed response with that. And we talked to some of the contractors, national contractors we work with, and some of their safety directors, et cetera, and they pointed out the OSHA regulations, et cetera, about accommodations for pedestrians, bicyclists, et cetera. And I think the biggest concern here is we haven't been presented with a plan. There's no plan, there's no safety plan, there's no logistics plan, there's no landscaping plan. And I think, for us to evaluate this fairly, we would expect that a lot of these issues would be presented to us and to the commission. And it just seems like we're trying to get this approved, and then we'll figure this out later. And just from my experience, you lose all your leverage when it's approved, and then we're acting in good faith, I guess, to try to sort it out. And so we'd like to see answers to these questions, which we think are very significant.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Mr. Chairman, I think that's what we have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point, I think I'd like, I'll get to my presentation in response to Mr. Hollister, but I think it would be good to ask Doug, have you had any conversations about the OSHA issues? And I want to make a couple of points. The construction entrance, first of all, the construction entrances haven't changed since your site plan approval in October of 2020. These plans were submitted and discussed by Mr. Brown with Mr. Hardy. Mr. Hardy attended the hearings, at least he attended the ZBA hearing virtually, and was discussing it with Mr. Brown while Neil Houck was presenting. So the construction entrances have been here ever since we first started this. So it is surprising to me that Mr. Hardy, an expert, didn't read the plan to understand that these have always been where they're located.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a
Yes.
question? Where on this plan does it show the construction entrance?
The plan, the entrances that go in and out. If you look
No,
at,
that's, can I interrupt you? Because what you're telling is not true.
if you let me,
I know, but you're saying, what you're suggesting, the proposed driveway, that's the completed driveway, not the construction entrance. Nowhere on this plan does it show the construction gate.
Doug, would
That's
you
what I'm
like,
asking.
Doug, would you be good enough to respond to that?
Sure. I mean, this is the access to the main house for construction. You're putting a driveway in, proposed driveway, which will be used as your construction entrance. There's a any tracking pad to access the area for construction. There's an access area here to construct for the garage, and with any tracking pad. Those are your construction entrances, and this has always been on our plan. And that's always been
So Doug, can I ask a question?
Property.
Doug, as you know, I know how to read plans. Tell me where on that it says it's construction entrance. I understand that that's the final site plan with the proposed driveway. Where does it say? I don't see a gate, and maybe it's I'm getting old and bad eyes, but where does that show the construction entrance?
Again, it shows it right here. I mean, we don't.
No. What it shows is proposed driveway. This is a final site plan condition. This is not a construction plan. Where does it show the gate? Like, you're not, guys, I understand how to read plans. It does not say construction entrance. It doesn't show a gate. I can see the red outline. I don't know if this was in the site plan or not, but it doesn't show a construction entrance. That's why I asked the question originally, and it was the response we got last Wednesday was the contractor will figure out where. Read your own response. That's where the contractor will put the construction. The contractor will figure it out. You're now saying that that's where it will go. It doesn't show that on these plans.
All right, gentlemen, all right, hold on, okay? Just calm down. I'm the chairman of the commission. The question should be directed to the chair. Okay? I've been doing this for 30 years. Mr. Hardy, you know, and I know that Gene Pride is an associate of yours, and I work on projects. I worked on 10 Willard Street, which is the project that you're building. Okay? There's an approved plan to build this house. Okay? My neighbors built houses on either side, and they did not have construction gates. Okay? Did you build your house?
Did I build the current house?
Correct.
We built it. I wasn't the contractor.
I didn't ask that. So you built the house. You were there when it was built. Did you have a construction gate?
It depends on what you mean by built.
Okay,
we obviously build properties. We had a contractor build it.
Correct. Did you have a construction gate at your house?
Sorry?
Did you have a construction gate at your house?
Did we have a construction gate at our house? No. Do you want to know the reason why?
No, I don't want to know the reason why. Was the house next door to you occupied when it was built?
No.
It was vacant.
Correct.
Okay.
It was a rental. Correct. It was a rental. It was unoccupied. It did get occupied during construction, but when we started, it was not occupied.
Okay. So, but during the period of construction, the house next door to you was occupied?
For a portion of it, yes.
Fine. And how long did it take you to build your house?
13 months, I think.
Okay.
14 months.
It took over a year. Okay. He has an approved plan. He has an approved plan.
I know, but
to build the house.
that wasn't my question. I understand how to read a site plan. My question was, where on here does it show the construction entrance, and where does it show whether there's a gate or not? We asked that in our response. We were told it would be decided later by the contractor. I learned tonight that it's going to be where the finished proposed driveway is.
If the building department requires a gate. Okay? Like I said earlier, the building department may require a gate, they may not require a gate. It's not required by the zoning regulations to have a gate on every single house that's built in the town of Darien. It's not a commercial project. We're not building at 10 Willard. Okay? So if you allow Mr. DeVesta to answer the questions that you have and you direct them to the chair, we'll try to get your questions answered. This is a special permit application and a zoning reg change and also a site plan. There's two, so we're looking at two applications. In the town of Darien, we are reviewing accessory dwelling units. This is an accessory use. not accessory dwelling unit. If the state law that was passed on last Thursday gets passed in the town of Darien, which is an opt-in and opt-out, they could have two accessory, they could have a house and accessory dwelling unit on it, not two principal uses. This is what we're looking at. This is a temporary situation. By the end of the year, we may have our own town of Darien accessory dwelling unit regulation. I get it. Do you understand it? You've been doing this a long time. Okay, Mr. Hollister is one of the best accessory dwelling unit and land use attorneys in the state that works for developers all the time. Okay, he's an 830G expert. I understand what's going on. Okay, we're just trying to see if we can get through the process. We'll get as many answers to your questions as possible. Okay, but we have to do them one at a time or two at a time. There's responses. Okay, we don't need to go back and forth on the whole thing for 2 hours. It's a single family house we're building. We're not building 140 apartments. Okay, Doug, do you have any other answers to the questions that are out there standing right now?
Yes, he mentioned a landscape plan. A landscape plan, a very detailed landscape plan was submitted to the EPC and to planning and zoning. So that is in the record in the files in the planning and zoning office.
That's the October application, Doug? That's the October 2020 approval
Yes,
application?
that's correct.
Okay, and that plan has not changed, right, Weidler?
As far as I know, no.
Thank you.
And this plan, this application has been before the EPC commission and was approved back in, I believe it was probably August, September of last year. It was not through a public hearing because EPC requires a public hearing for a house that's being raised, but because it's going to go through planning and zoning with a public hearing, they opted not to have a public hearing for EPC, but it was reviewed by the commission. And when we talked to the staff regarding trimming of vegetation, we did not say we're going to remove any invasives at this time, but we were going to trim back to get better sightline distances. The staff said they could approve it, and Rich Jacobson, the staff, said that he has no problem with us trimming back vegetation to provide better sight distances. And we understand that the piece is on the Harding property. Obviously, we have to get permission to do that. Also, speaking with Mr. Brown, over the time frame that he's been living there, he's been trimming back some of the vegetation as well, just for, again, to provide safety for his family and the Harding's family and any visitors to the property, the vegetation along the driveway. But again, we need permission, we can get permission from Mr. Harding if he will accept it. We would do trimming on his property to provide safety access for all parties involved.
Thank you.
Doug, do you have any comments about OSHA requirements, which Mr. Hardy claims apply to this?
Yes, I saw the email from Arco Murray, and he talked about the manual for the uniform traffic control devices, and basically I think the commission has seen it. There was a statement in there that said the needs and controls of all roads, in parentheses, motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians within the traffic on the highway or on private roads, on public roads, and continues on. I did look up the definition in the uniform traffic control devices, and for a private road open to public travel, and it states a private road open to public travel, private toll roads and roads, including any adjacent sidewalks that generally run parallel to a road within shopping centers, airports, sports arenas, and other similar businesses and or recreational facilities are privately owned, but where the public is allowed to travel without access restriction. Roads within private gated community properties, except for toll gated roads, where access restriction at all times. And parking areas, driveways, and parking areas, and within gated grades crossing, a private grade crossing shall not be included in definition. And again, I'm not an attorney, but in my mind, we're dealing with a private driveway. We're not dealing with any kind of a public road or private road that's being serviced to a public road area. So again, I don't see how that, again, we're dealing with a single family residence. We're not dealing with a commercial site here. I did speak with Mike Vitti, the assistant town building official, regarding the OSHA regulations that would prevent an owner to live in an existing house while a new house is being constructed, or if there's a setback that would require from the existing house to the new house. And there are no requirements. In fact, he told me that surrounding towns, such as New Canaan, does permit an existing residence to be occupied while the new building is being constructed on the same property. So again, in looking back at our site plan here, the existing residence is right where my cursor is right here. We've got about 90 feet between the main body of the residence and the house itself. And then from the garage, we've got over 38 feet from the main body of the house to the garage that's being constructed. So again, the surrounding towns permit this activity to be done, and it's our opinion that this can be the existing house can be occupied while the new house is being constructed and still maintain a safe construction site.
Great, thank you. Mr. Gleason,
Yes,
do you know if your client ever gets Amazon trucks to go to his house?
Yes, he does, and he has told me that there are numerous other delivery vehicles, UPS, USPS, Amazon, FedEx, that arrive serving both the Hardy residents and his residents, and that Mr. Hardy, when he's been working from home during COVID, has numerous contractor vehicles that show up at the house, apparently as part of his work, we believe. We don't know, but there are construction vehicles coming and going that aren't doing construction work, apparently, on the Hardy house.
I'm not worried about I'm worried about your house.
Yes.
What about like garbage trucks and oil trucks? Is the house served by oil?
I can't speak to that. Jeff, are you on?
Yes, we're serviced by Galt for heating oil and Darien disposal for garbage.
Do you have any access problems when trucks like that go up and down your driveway? If there's two cars that intersect at the same time?
Whenever that happens on the driveway, we simply, one car backs up to either the bump in the driveway or back to my driveway entrance to the garage or back to Peach Hill.
And so that happens on a periodic basis. Okay.
I would say on a regular basis, yeah, it's normal, but it gets resolved in less than a minute, and we manage.
Okay. Hey, Doug, at a house like this, how many construction vans do you think you would have to build something like this if it was going full tilt?
Maybe I'll have Neil discuss that. I know he's discussed that amongst ourselves. But Neil, you want to answer that question?
The reason why I'm asking, I think earlier you described 4 parking spaces at one spot, 5 at another spot, and possibly 4 at another spot. Is that
correct? Right. I have 5 up the main house, 4 stacked by the garage, and I have 5 down by the existing driveway.
That's like 14 parking spaces?
Correct.
Plus, does that still account for resident parking spaces?
The residents would still park in the area, the back out area by their garage. It's a garage under, so they have a big parking area, and where my cursor is right now.
Okay, and last I heard, Mr. Brown's wife doesn't drive, so there's probably only one car in the family. Is that maybe correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
We must have additional help for the child that lives at home and has a student aid or something like that. So maybe we have 2 cars in that driveway.
I can't do that, Mr. Brown.
We do not have a nanny or an aide. We take care of our son ourselves. There's only one car in the household, and I'm the only driver.
Okay, thank you. So going back, can we see if Mr. Houck can answer the question of how many potential contractor vans you could have on the property at one time?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So for the record, my name is Neil Houck from Neil Houck Architects, and my firm was the architecture firm that designed this house. So you will always have the project superintendent on the job site throughout the entire construction of the project. Early on, you'll have an excavator with a backhoe. I don't think there'll be more than one piece of equipment on the job site to excavate. And then following that, they'll be forming concrete. And you may have a couple laborers forming footings and then forming the foundation walls. After the foundations are up and the site's backfilled, you'll have a framing crew that might be 4 or 5 men on the job site, including the project superintendent. And they will frame the house up, put the windows in, do exterior trim, put the roof on, and then side it. And at that point, when the house is enclosed, you'll start to get the mechanical trades. So the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical trades will all come and do their work. And that's probably the point in the job when you'll have the most cars on the site. I would say that each of those trades will have 3 people working at a time. Although on a house this size, you'll start with the HVAC, and then as they move through from one end of the house to the other, they'll be followed by plumbers. And then following that, you'll have the electrician come in and they'll do their work. Once the trades are done and the inspections are received, they'll move to the finish work, where you'll have first a couple flooring. Well, no, I guess the next step would be sheetrocking. So sheetrocking, taping, you might have 3 or 4 guys doing that. And then you get into the finish work. So I would say at most you're going to have 10 people on site. And I think there's ample parking provided by Doug in his site plan.
Do you think when you have 10 people, so there's 12 construction workers, be it men or women, doesn't really matter. Does everybody drive their own white van or do they carpool?
Well, I think it depends on the individual crew. I've seen both.
Okay. I know when my painter comes, all 3 guys came in the same truck.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, exactly.
What am I missing at this point? You're the applicant.
Well, in terms of Mr. Hollister's claims, I consulted commission staff about how to draft this, where it should go. We all agreed that it was an accessory use, that this is part of, and it should be classified as such, given where we are. And we talked about what section should be, how they should be amended. There are ample standards, not only in the regulation I proposed, but also in section 1005. And you have a number of findings that you have to make under section 1005, your special permit regulations, in order to deal with neighborhood concerns and whether or not it's consistent with the town plan. Is it appropriate and orderly development in the district in which the property is located? All those sections come into play, and you must make findings in order to award a special permit under this application. I profoundly disagree with Mr. Hollister's legal assertion that we have a defective notice. Mr. Hardy has an easement, which is a matter of record here, Mr. Brown has an easement over the Hardy property. Under Mr. Hollister's interpretation, Mr. Brown would need permission from Mr. Hardy in order to apply to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a zoning permit or approvals to construct his residence. That didn't happen back in October when you approved the special permit. And because there's a deeded easement, the property involved is part of the Brown property. Mr. Brown doesn't need Mr. Hardy's permission to seek your approval for this zoning amendment or for the portion of his property, the easement over the Hardy property. It's part of what Mr. Brown owns. And to claim that we have to get his consent, Mr. Hardy's consent, just means Mr. Brown could never, Mr. Hardy could hold up any construction that required P&Z permits if Mr. Hardy was so inclined. I don't think the law would go to that end, and it makes no sense to me. And I don't think it would make any sense to you. So the notice is not defective. The accessory use is appropriate under the circumstances. And I believe the technical legal issues that Mr. Hollister has raised are not meritorious, because you do have standards under section 1005, which has existed for at least 35 years in the Darien Zoning Regulations. And there are findings that you need to make under that section before we can move forward. I don't subscribe to Mr. Hollister's approaches. In terms of the history here, it's somewhat baffling to me why Mr. Hardy, after allowing 2 public hearings to proceed, one of which he attended virtually, is now raising safety issues and concerns. He had opportunities to do this previously. And we believe, while Mr. Hardy is sincere in his concerns, we don't believe that the suggestions that he's making here are appropriate for a single-family residential construction, including one which is served by a common driveway of some length. In fact, having practiced in Darien for over 30 years, I have never seen conditions such as Mr. Hardy proposes for a single-family residential construction or commercial construction. So I don't know why P&Z would seek to impose them now. So we have an absolute right under the October approval that you gave in land filling and regrading number 387 to proceed with the house construction now. Mr. Hardy has known for some time that Mr. Brown would like to live in the current residence while the new house is constructed. He had to know that because he attended the ZBA hearing where we sought variances to get that. The ZBA turned it down because 3 of the members felt there was no hardship to justify the variance, not because they were concerned about safety and driveway access, as Mr. Hardy suggests in his recent memo. I do know, and Doug has copies of them, and I'm happy to submit them for the record, that Mr. Hardy had no conditions on his building and zoning permits when he constructed his house 5 years ago, despite the fact that there were tenants in the current Brown residence at the time. And we'll submit those for the record, but we have copies of them. Doug could pull them up. I don't think we need to do that. Our client advises the bulge allows vehicles to pass abreast. And as he's indicated, if they can't, one of them backs up so that they can pass. That's worked. It worked during the Hardy construction. It should work during our construction. The fact that neighbors' children choose on occasion to use the driveway should not prevent the Brown residence from being constructed. Mr. Hardy suggests in his memo that Jersey barriers creating a safe zone for pedestrian might be appropriate. That is contrary to other objectives or concerns that he raises, such as vehicles being able to pass abreast and emergency access 24/7. We suggest that some signage might be appropriate, watch for oncoming vehicles, et cetera, and you'll see in stipulations that we propose as being reasonable to address those concerns. And the neighbors whose children, trespass actually, but with the Brown's consent on the Brown property and the Hardy property, could merely tell their children that they should seek other alternatives instead of coming up the driveway during construction. Mr. Hardy suggests that a traffic flow diagram should be provided. In my many years practicing before this board, I have never seen one requested or supplied, and that includes commercial and residential applications. It may be suitable for the large commercial developments that Mr. Hardy is involved in, but not for this single family residence. One of the earlier submissions of Mr. Hardy suggested there should be a separate entrance for residential and construction vehicles. We don't have that option here. Mr. Hardy didn't have that option when he built. So we feel there's adequate measures that can be taken to address his safety concerns. We believe that many of the concerns he's expressed are already addressed in the driveway agreement, which has been submitted as part of the record. And Doug, if you could pull up that slide, I'd like to go to that. Those are the permits which will be submitted. But the driveway agreement, which Mr. Hardy's counsel submitted, already addresses repair of the driveway. Mr. Brown, if he just damages any party to the agreement, Cindy Hardy or Jeffery Brown, if they damage the driveway, they have to repair it. There is cross indemnification in this agreement for accidents on the driveway. It allows the driveway agreement gives Mr. Brown exclusive rights to the driveway serving his current residence and an easement area significantly wider than that driveway for his exclusive use. So the construction parking we're proposing is on Mr. Hardy's property, but that is subject to exclusive rights of Jeffery Brown. So although Mr. Hardy was complaining about that, he apparently hadn't read the agreement that gives Mr. Hardy and Brown exclusive rights to use that area. He does have the obligation under the driveway agreement to restore it after his construction use, and he will do so. Maintenance and restoration of the Hardy property after construction is required by the driveway agreement, and he has an obligation to repair and maintain that. The gate issue that Mr. Hardy raised, we believe is covered by the driveway agreement, but I don't think that's something that P&Z should address in this hearing, although it appears Mr. Hardy asked for that. The bottom line is, we believe many of the areas where Mr. Hardy is requesting P&Z to intervene are already addressed by the driveway agreement, and that Mr. Brown and Mr. Hardy can probably work that out. And should they be unable to do so, the driveway agreement has an arbitration provision for enforcement of the terms of the driveway agreement. I don't think planning and zoning should involve itself in those areas which are addressed by the driveway agreement. However, in talking with Mr. Brown, he's indicated he's willing to accept a number of stipulations which we don't think are necessary, but we think hopefully will address the most important concerns of Mr. Hardy and his wife. If you could turn to the next slide, please, Doug. So we propose the following stipulations: that Mr. Brown will construct per the revised site plan. And while the sketch that Doug has provided is not a formal site plan, obviously we would be fine with you saying we have to create a site plan consistent with that sketch and file it as part of any approval.
Mr. Gleason, may I interrupt for a point of order, please? This is Tim Hollister. Just a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Were these posted online 24 hours ahead?
No.
Thank you. Sorry for the.
Mr. Brown will construct per the revised site plan. Mr. Brown will trim bushes on the north side of the driveway to improve sight lines per the revised site plan and periodically during construction. He will install signs at the shared driveway entrance to the effect of beware of children and watch for oncoming vehicles. And we would rely on P&Z staff to modify those concerns. And that Mr. Hardy will receive the contact information of the site supervisor that is engaged by Mr. Brown's contractor. So we think those are appropriate stipulations that could be hopefully address his concerns. We think those would be all that would be needed in order for you to move forward with this.
Neighbors, or anyone other than party.
Okay, wait, I want to check one last thing. Weiler, I just want to check one thing on the, on your exhibit C to your application. It's a lot less than, it was, in section 405, A to G, numeral number 1. You have it's like a 3-acre property, 2.76 acres without the driveway. It's in a 2-acre zone. Your text change amendment is in a lot that's less than a half an acre. We went back and forth on this a couple of times at that last meeting relative to the commission. I think the construction site's about an acre. So if we adjust that 0.5 acres to an acre, is that okay with you?
We have no objection. We just want to be able to move forward. I do recall, I think that there was some commission testimony that a half acre has worked for this in the past in Greenwich. But,
right, yeah, no, yeah, we'll go over that. The commission will debate that when we get to time to it. I just want to see
if you said the minimum lot size is 1 acre. And I can understand why you would want to go cautiously with this initially, but I think ultimately you will find that a half acre will support this sort of development, provided you are able to make the findings under our proposed regulation and under the special permit requirements of 1005.
Yeah, because my recollection is that Commissioner Leahy lived in Greenwich, and she was on 1 acre lot, and they built the second house. That's why a half acre was good by her. But we can figure that out at some point.
We're fine with that if you wish to amend that.
Okay. Are there any other changes that we talked about relative to this amendment at all? Nothing? What are you thinking about? I'm going to ask anyone else from Joe.
Yep.
Would anybody else in the general public like to speak to this application? Do you have anybody in the chat box, Fred, or anybody out there raising their hands? Okay.
No, we don't have anyone, Steve.
Okay. Hold on one second. Any commissioners have any additional questions that I missed? I haven't gotten to you guys yet. Jim Rand, go ahead, sir.
This may not even be relevant, and I hesitate to mention it, but just for my own clarification, how many residences will there be on this property once construction is finished?
1.
Yeah, it's got to be one. It's one house.
Okay, so I mean, we're still working on the same premise as a year ago, which is live in the old house, build a new house, demolish the old house.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Correct. And then the garage, which is separate from the house, does not have an accessory dwelling unit in it at this point.
That's correct.
Okay, hold on one second, Mr. Hollister. Does any other commission have any other questions? You're okay? Larry, you're good? Mr. Riley, you're good? Jen Leahy is okay? Okay, Mr. Hollister, do you have something to add, sir? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Less than 2 minutes. Well, Attorney Gleason and I certainly disagree quite substantially, so perhaps you should get an attorney opinion, your town attorney, before you vote, because, for example, Mr. Gleason did not bring up the defective notice. I would point out that I don't see any way that a main house would ever qualify as an accessory dwelling unit. There's certainly no bill in the legislature that would treat it as such. If I heard Mr. DeVesta correctly, The EDC certainly did not last year approve the site plan that is before you tonight because it was revised in the last several days and it involves a regulated activity. So they are out of sync. I think a really good issue for your town attorney to opine on is whether when there's a driveway agreement that provides access and now there is a zoning regulation amendment and a special permit application to do something that not been previously allowed by the zoning regulations, whether that overreaches or overburdens the easement that is allowed by the driveway regulation. The problem here, which everybody seems to be avoiding, is this is a shared driveway that is used by 5 different families. And if this were just a straight shot off a public road onto the house, there wouldn't be an issue. But it is a shared driveway, and that is what is creating the safety and logistical issues that Mr. Hardy is trying to bring to your attention. And so, it is a defective application. I would respectfully suggest that at least you get a town attorney's opinion before you vote. Thank you.
Okay, 2 questions. One, Weiler, is the easement agreement part of this record? I know it's come through on an email. I don't know if it was submitted to the record or not.
I believe Mr. Hollister submitted it.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. And then the 5 families share the driveway. Can you identify those other families?
Yeah, they're well, the Hardys, the Browns, and then the 3 emails that are attached to our May 24th submission. So that would be the COPPE, C-O-P-P-E. If I mispronounce it, I apologize.
What's their address? What's their address?
All right, Mr.
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
The Copays, the Copays, the Barretts, and the Simons, they are at the top of Peach Hill. I don't have their exact. I can get them for you, probably on the fly. But they are the properties behind ourselves and the Browns, and their children use it as a cut through. Those were the emails that we sent. In the Brown submission, they had said that it was only his child and his wife that use it daily, and then we responded that no, in fact, we use it. My 4 children use it, and the collective 10 children from the other houses use it as a cut through. They don't use it for vehicular traffic, of course, but they do use it for walking. And the concern, of course, setting aside the children, and they are not trespassing. But the setting aside that is that we would have, in fact, our children, our 4 children, and Mr. Brown's 2 children, walking up and down a road that is in fact going to be significantly more congested than it is today, including heavy equipment. That's just not acceptable to us. So I think there's ways to mitigate it. I haven't heard any tonight, but I wish that we could have worked on something that would have done that, widening the road, twinning the road. Mr. Brown has the ability to actually build a road all the way to Peach Hill if he wanted to. He does not have to use this. So there are alternatives, but they haven't been discussed.
I would dispute that.
Hold on, Weiler. But just to be clear, the only people that are parties to this easement agreement driveway is the Hardy house and the Brown house.
Correct, and our respective guests and service contractors, etc.
Understood, but the only people that the mailboxes out front have 2 houses, not the other 2 houses.
Correct.
They don't benefit from the easement. So it's just 2, Mr. Hollister, not 5.
2 people.
No, I didn't say the driveway agreement was 5. I said they're used by 5 families. The driveway is used by 5 families.
Yeah, I mean, I used it too when I went to his house. Weiler, did you have something to answer?
Yeah, I did. There is no conceivable way that the Browns could legally construct a driveway to Peach Hill Road. Their property is separated by inland wetlands, and the EPC is not going to provide them with approvals to fill the wetlands or build a bridge over it, even if they wanted to do so, when there is a feasible and prudent alternative that involves no damage to the inland wetlands. and that is use of the shared driveway, which was part of it, which is part of the record. So we don't subscribe to Mr. Hardy's assertion that we could twin the road.
Okay, brother, are you finished?
We are finished.
Okay, Mr. Hardy or Mr. Hollister, anything else to add, sir, since you're the only person from the public?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I just want to address one thing that Mr. Gleason said about how we are supposedly coming out of the woodwork on this. As I said, this whole process has been secretive. I was in touch with Jeff, Mr. Brown, probably a year or so ago, and I was not actually involved in the site plan. I did not have any participation in that. I don't recall if we received notice or what have you, but and we did participate in the ZBA hearing. And as I said, we are supportive of the Browns. What we're not supportive is a plan that has not been well thought out from a safety and logistics standpoint, and expecting our children to walk up and down a road that's going to have concrete mixers and dump trucks and all kinds of additional traffic is just not acceptable. It's too dangerous.
The only thing, I understand your point in your position, but the only thing I would say, Mr. Hardy, is he already has an approval to build a house. So whether he
Yes,
gets,
I understand that. Yes, we support that. What we're suggesting is that we support that he build a house, and I don't even, the issue with them living in it is simply just one of traffic volume. I'm not even so concerned about that if they could put together a mitigation plan. But you're asking 4 small children, as well as neighborhood children, as well as his own children, as well as our pets, my wife, myself, etc., to walk up and down a very narrow road, which, by the way, we didn't even talk about the snow. I mean, I sent pictures of the snow. You cannot pass that road in the snow. You can't. There's snowbanks on either side. Nobody can pass. And we were concerned about emergency access. So I read the comments provided by, I believe it was the chief of police or whoever it was, saying that there have to be 24/7 uninterrupted access. That's physically impossible when there's snow mounds on either side of that road. You would have to back up. Now, as Mr. Brown said, we deal with it today, okay? But we don't deal with it, the amount of congestion, the size of the vehicles, etc. And so if there was ever an emergency and it was in the middle of, even not being in the winter, but if it was in the middle of the winter, the ability for you to clear that roadway would take minutes, okay? It's not going to take 5 or 10 minutes, but it would take 3 or 4 minutes. You physically cannot guarantee that we would get emergency access here without a delay. Can't guarantee it. And furthermore, I just think, that to expect children to walk up and down a driveway where there's heavy construction traffic, where there's no sidewalks, there's no protections, etc., is unconscionable.
I mean, we don't need to debate this back and forth, but did you do anything different when you built your house 5 years ago?
Well, as I said, to answer that question, yes, it was materially different. First of all, we weren't living there. Second of all, the house that the Browns now occupied was largely absent for most of the period during our construction. It was inhabited for a portion of it. When it was inhabited, it wasn't inhabited with small children. So it's actually a fairly significantly different condition than when we built. And as I said, we are supportive here. We'd like to find a way, but whether or not you can actually build, I do this for a living, I think, as people know by now. Whether you could get EPC approval or not, I don't know. We obviously have approval for the road today, which goes through the wetlands. It certainly could have been widened, right? That's a solution that could have been looked at, but it doesn't seem like anybody's put any thought, or any thought that we've seen, into mitigating this very potentially dangerous situation. And so, in fact, the fact that I'm seeing these proposed stipulations for the first time tonight versus 3 weeks ago, again, is indicative of this whole process, which is nobody's including us. And And the solutions being put forward are very dismissive of very real concerns for the safety of our children. So, I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, sir. Great. Wyther, we're looking to close this. So I'm looking for a motion to close, but do you have anything else to add before we look for a motion to close, Wyther?
No.
Okay. I entertain a motion to close this hearing without any objection from one of the commissioners, please.
Motion to close?
Jennifer made the motion. Larry Warble
second.
seconded. Fantastic. All those in favor?
Closing the hearing would be 5-0.
5-0. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda, coastal site plan review number 355, land filling and regrading application number 500. Gonzalo and Melissa Escajadillo, 94 5 Mile River Road, proposed to raise the existing residence, construct a new single-family dwelling in generally the same location, install a pool and spa terrace areas, new driveway areas, and perform related site development activities within a regulated area, including the regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. That's some long sentence. The 0.51 plus minus acres site subject property is on the west side of 5 Mile River Road, approximately 480 feet north of its intersection with Davis Lane, and is shown on Assessor map number 66 as lot number 39 in the R1 half zone. Jeremy, what do we got?
Yes, this is a replacement single-family residence. It's on, I'll call it the landward side, which is the western side of 5 Mile River Road. The property is served by public water and sewer. The only health department approval that would be needed would be during the demolition. Because this is in the near the coast, we referred it to the state of Connecticut DEEP. They sent an email dated May 13, 2021. Based on their review, the department has no comments to offer on the work and activities as proposed at this time. It's an email from Jamie Sadoyak of DEEP. You have in your packets a copy of the site plan and the replacement house and landscaping plan from which were submitted by applicant's representative Doug DeVesta, who also worked on the stormwater management plan. He's going to talk a little bit about the requested waiver of the full stormwater management due to its property location near the 5 Mile River. I'll let Doug take it from here.
Mr. DeVesta, there you are, right in the middle. Welcome, sir. You can hear me, right, Doug? Doug, he keeps freezing, I think. Is he frozen? He looks frozen to me, doesn't he?
He does.
He's frozen,
He
right?
put a picture of himself up and has left the room.
That's people do that on Zoom all the time
I
now.
don't know. I'm trying to see if someone else is here.
He's
Chime in
frozen.
while we resolve this. Let's see.
Can we ping him?
No, Fred, if you could let in Christopher Pagliaro, trying to get into the meeting, who's the architect on this project, I believe.
Chris is here. Chris, or can you hear us?
There he is.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Your
can.
camera's not on, Chris, but that's not against the law.
My camera's on, but you're just fortunate you can't see me.
My wife says the same thing.
I even put on a nice shirt.
Welcome, sir. Can you present the
I
application?
also need Cara Vincenta and Danilo Marini in, because if I have to present anything, Danilo controls my graphics for me. Please.
Got that, Fred? Doug left, and maybe he's coming back.
If not, we can jump to the next application if you want to, if this doesn't work itself out.
I do that.
You want to do that?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, let's
Yes.
jump to the next application and wait till Doug DeVesta gets back. Doug, are you back? All right, let's move to the next application. Is that okay, commissioners? All right, we're gonna keep that application open. Move to the next one. Are the Andersons here?
And
I see a Dan.
Harry Woodfield is here.
Okay, let me go. Let me read this.
Anderson's right there.
And Harry
Hey,
Rochelle,
Steve.
the court engineering is here as well to represent.
Okay, hold on, sir. Hold on, Harry. Next item on the agenda, flood damage prevention application number 406, Daniel and Jennifer Anderson, 19 Holly Hill Lane. Proposal to install a pool, spa, and patio areas with an arbor and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 1.12 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the north side of Holly Hill Lane, approximately 670 feet east of its intersection with Libby Lane, and is shown on Assessor's map number 9 as lot 143 in the R1 zone. This is a proposal.
Larry has a question.
Yeah, Larry.
Yeah, hey, I'm gonna have to recuse myself from this one.
Okay, that's fine. We still have 4 commissioners, I think, right?
Yep.
Okay, this is a house that we did look at a house for West Step a couple years ago on Holly Hill Lane. Holly Lane, right?
Yep.
They're putting in a pool in the backyard and they already got EPC approval.
Right.
What do we got, Jeremy? What did I miss?
This is, you're correct, is EPC approval has been obtained for this property. The backyard is pretty much lawn now, and EPC granted approval for this. The work is in the flood zone, is the reason it's here before the commission. And Harry Rocheville is here on behalf of McCord Engineering, talk a little bit about the plan and how the pool complies with flood regulations.
Great. Harry Rocheville, welcome, sir. Turn your microphone on.
Good evening, everyone. Harry Rocheville, McCord Engineering, here to represent the Andersons. I believe I shared my screen. If it works, please let me know. Okay, so as Jeremy stated, we have an existing residence that's accessed off Holly Lane. Currently, the backyard is lawn with wetlands all the way to the rear. You'll see the approximate limit of lawn right here on the plan. Essentially, our silt fence line as well for erosion controls, and then the wetlands envelope the whole backyard here. Also, as Jeremy stated, we're here in front of you because the property is within the flood zone with a base flood elevation of 98.2. And you'll see here the 98 contour runs right through here. So only a little bit of the pool is actually within the flood zone. And the total volume within the flood zone is only that will be filling is only 2.9 cubic yards. So very little material being added to the flood zone. And we'll be compensating for that by adding a water quality swale to filter driveway runoff over here. So we'll balance the material that we are adding over here by removing it over here. So there'll be a no increase of any material added to the flood zone. The proposed pool is in the backyard here with patios surrounding it. There's an existing patio off of the rear of the house that will stay as well. Runoff from the house is currently controlled by an underground detention system shown here with my cursor to mitigate any increase in runoff from the pool and patio and arbor. We will be installing patio drains around patio and expanding the detention system to control any increase in peak flows. So there'll be a decrease in peak flows as part of this project. Another control structure shown here. There's one existing that'll be relocated because it will be impacted by increasing the detention system, but the outlet for that will remain the same. Construction access off the existing driveway here and erosion controls down gradient of the proposed construction in the form of a silt fence. As Jeremy stated, we have already gotten EPC approval for this, for the work within the regulated area. As part of that proposal, there was mitigation plantings shown here in the back of the patio and also over here to further filter the runoff through the grass swale off the driveway. That planting plan was prepared by Wagner Pools, and I can share that with you as well. But that was more for the EPC application more than anything. But I'd be happy to show that plan if you would like to see it. I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
All right, that's behind the pool. It's Mike Kennedy's term, right? Really quick question.
Right. Question.
Just to make sure I got an echo. The Coltech system that's going to go underneath the home.
Yes, so there's an existing system there now. It's not Coltex, it's concrete galleries, and we'll be expanding it with one additional 8-foot unit per each row, and that will result in no increase in any peak flows leaving the site as part of this project. In our stormwater analysis, since we are in wetland soils nearby, we didn't take credit for any infiltration as part of the stormwater system, so it's strictly peak flows. And water quality will be provided by the grass swale that will take the driveway runoff that is currently not captured, and also by sheet flow off the back of the patio here through the other area of plantings.
Okay. Why don't you just put up the planting plan from Wagner?
Yep.
Really quick, and then I think we're good.
Here, okay, here we go. You see a variety of plantings in the back of the patio here. I want to say 50 or so. And then also over here where the swale is indicated, there's additional plantings as well. And Sean included pictures and species for all of the plantings shown down here at the bottom of the page.
Fantastic. Mute me.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. That pretty much sums up our overview. Chairman, I think you're on mute. I can't.
Jeremy, unmute your microphone.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
So, Mr. Ovani asked if there's any questions from commission members. Mr. Riley, no. Ms. Leahy. Mr. Rand. Okay. You want to try now? Turn my mic on. Switch back.
Hey, Harry, try muting your computer when you're not talking.
Hey, my mic's on the way. All right, we're going to get through this. Okay. All right, there's no questions for the commissioners, right? Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application?
Yes. What kind of fencing are you going to have?
Sure, ma'am. Just give me your name for the record, please.
Dennis Lockhart. I back up to Dan Anderson. I share his backyard with him.
Okay. Harry, you want to tell Mrs. Lockhart what fence you can have back there? And make sure you note that all around the pool screen too, I think.
Hey, Janice, try muting your computer when you're not talking. That's what the feedback is.
Okay.
Okay, do you want
to? Yes, I think Sean would be better suited to answer the question of what type of pool fence he'll be proposing. If he can answer that question, Sean Walters of Wagner Pools.
There he is.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Okay, thanks for your time. So the fence runs, it's going to be kind of that classic, anything attached to the house, coming perpendicular off the corners of the house will be a solid board fence for aesthetics. And then all the other runs along the side lot lines and the rear lot line would either be like a black vinyl coated chain link or a welded wire deer type of fence. And the idea would be that you can't see it. You know, we basically don't want it to pop or stick out in any sort of way. So that would be the fencing.
Did you hear that, Janice?
Yes, yes.
Is that satisfactory, ma'am?
Yeah, because it's going to have a fence around the back,
Correct.
a high board fence, so you can't see it across the whole back of the property.
Well, this thing is so incredibly well screened with all these plantings. The entire pool is surrounded. You've got a whole row of, may I share my screen?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. So this whole row of plants right here, these are green giant arborvitaes that do very well with wet feet. So provide complete screening on this side. And then, you know, back in here in the wetlands, we wanted to be careful and not overplant it too much, but this is an extremely robust planting plan here. And this is not the mitigation plan, by the way. These are just the normally specified plants that are going to be separating the pool from the back of the lot line. And then on the other side, I unfortunately don't have images, but there's a fairly robust existing evergreen screening on this side of the lot as well.
Okay. Do you understand, Mrs. Lockhart?
I was hoping for a fence across the back.
For a solid board fence across the back.
Yes, because my other neighbor has a fence across the back, which is very nice.
So that's something
and she has a pool.
Right. I mean, that's something, I mean, we don't have, as far as I know, those type of requirements in the regulations. That's something that I would need to speak to my client directly about. I can't throw that out there for, you know, on their behalf or speak for them with regard to that. But you know, my stance on this is that we've basically addressed all the concerns of the EPC and environmental concerns. This is a 15 by 35 pool. It's not your classical 20 by 40. We're not proposing a lot here. It's a small amount of patio. It's situated as close to the house as we can get it and as far out of the wetlands as possible. And have taken into consideration as many variables as we possibly can on this. We feel that it's going to be very nicely screened, to be quite honest with you. There's a lot of plants back here.
Go ahead, Dan. Just state your name for the record, sir.
Yeah, Dan Anderson. I'm the client here. Janice, I'd be happy to work with you on which fence we're going to choose and pick out and everything. My goal is to just make sure that the neighbors are happy and we're happy and just, you know, pick something that works for everybody. So, you know, so before we do it, you know, when Sean proposes the fence, I'll come over and show it to you as well.
I appreciate that. And it's only just, yeah, I'm trying to understand how long across your backyard it will be. It's not going to be, is it going to be on your side or is it going to be on my side?
So we have a stone wall. We have a stone wall that separates the two properties.
Yes,
so
and is it going to be right across the stone wall?
I don't think so. Sean maybe could be more helpful on that one, but it'll definitely be on our side of the stone wall and probably not abutting the stone wall. Sean, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, give me just half a second here. We'll take a look at the survey so we can just get an idea of the overall site plan here. So the fence, you know, we want to capture as much space as we can. So the fence is going to come perpendicular off the corner of the house here, come up the lot line. It has to be a reasonable distance off of this stone wall so that people can't gain access over the fence, via the stone wall. So it's going to be set inside the Andersons' property, several feet, and then return up this way and come back into the house.
And that area in there is all a wooded area. So, I don't
Heavily
know if there's
wooded.
regulations. Yeah, it's heavily wooded. So I don't know if there's regulations or anything, but Janice, I'll be happy to, again, come up with an agreement with you that satisfies what you're looking for.
I just think it would be nice to have a fence that just separate it.
Yep. By regulation, ma'am, they have to have it's a 4-foot fence around a pool, right, on all sides. But it can be, within distance of there. It's however you guys work it out. It doesn't matter to the Planning and Zoning Commission, just as long as the building department has the fence that's required by the statute is funded by us.
I appreciate that.
No problem, ma'am.
That's it.
That's it. Do any commissioners have any questions on this application? Okay. Anyone else in the general public want to speak to the application? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close, which that's going to be Jennifer and Jim Rand. All those in favor? That should be 4-0, right? Larry
Yep.
is recused. Great, thank you. You're all set, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys very much.
No problem. Is Doug DeVesta back? Can we get Doug
Yes,
DeVesta?
I'm back, Steve.
All right, Doug.
Sorry about that.
Are you just confirming you're back?
I'm back. I don't know what happened. Something froze up on me.
Great.
Okay, Doug, while you were frozen, we read your application into the record. So the application's over, and I would turn it back over to you.
Sure. Fred, can I have the screen, please? Okay. Okay, for the record, my name is Doug DeVesta, professional engineer, represent the applicant. With me tonight is Chris Pagliarulo, the architect, and Tara Viceni. She's the landscape architect. So if you have any questions regarding those portions of the application, we certainly can have them speak on it. Let me just blow this up. So what's on the screen right now is the existing conditions for the surveyor. So the hatched mark is the existing house. The driveway is a paved driveway coming in along the southern portion of the house. The proposal is to raise the existing house and to construct a new house in the same general area as the existing. The property is located in the R1/2 zone. The lot area is around 22,374 square feet. The existing house was constructed in 1963. It's a single-story modern, I'm going to call it, Chris will probably tell you better, it's more of a modern house, and was remodeled in 1998 according to the assessor's card. It's located on the west side of 5 Mile River Road, which is along the bottom of my sheet, which is 5 Mile River Road. Access again is through a paved driveway into the site. It's across the street from the 5 Mile River. If you look at my location map, the area where its site is, that's 5 Mile River, and it's one property away from the river itself. It's surrounded by residential development around all three sides, with 5 Mile River Road to the east. The property is not located in the FEMA flood zone. That's across the street. The property starts around elevation 18 and goes on the southeast corner and rises to about elevation 34 up in the northwest corner of the property. The house is currently served through a low pressure sewer main that is in 5 Mile River Road. As we had mentioned, the existing house will be raised. A new house will be constructed in the same general location. The existing curb cut will be used. The driveway will be modified to access the new garage and provide parking for the residents and a wider driveway. A pool and spa will be constructed, and along with very detailed landscaping, plantings around the base of the house, planting areas around it, and then some natural boulders. And Tara can go into more detail on the plantings for the residents. We're seeking a waiver from Section 880 from doing a full stormwater management analysis of the site due to the property being the lower third of the property and being almost adjacent to one property away from the 5 Mile River, which is tidal relative to the entrance of Long Island Sound. What we did is we did the water quality volume for the impervious areas. We'll be providing a subsurface bioretention area in front of the patio, and then 2 more areas along the northeast side of the property, as well as a surface bioretention area that will collect the runoff from the driveway. And we're also providing some bioretention area along a pathway by the garage here that will handle the runoff from the garage itself. I think Jeremy mentioned we got comments from DEP, and they have no comments on the proposed work at this time. We got comments from DPW. Most of his comments were descriptive in nature. We'll do soil testing within the areas of the surface and the subsurface bioretention areas. As Darren mentions, the unfunded mandate form for DEP has been submitted, which shows what's connected and disconnected impervious areas. So that's been taken care of. And then we also have a note in our plans that we will have this project surveyor provide an as-built of all buried infrastructure. So maybe Tara, do you want to sort of go through and explain your landscaping plan to the commission? I should have your plan up here if you want. Tara?
Tara needs to unmute herself.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, everyone. Yes, the bioretention area that Doug mentioned.
Say your name and company for the record, please.
Yes, Tara Vincenta, Artemis Landscape Architects.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Yes, we have an extensive bioretention area to the left of the driveway that we have integrated with other plantings planned for to soften the retaining wall alongside the driveway that you see that Doug is pointing out now. And these bioretention plantings are all native grasses and perennials that we have woven together to create a really beautiful bioretention area, especially since it is in front of the home. And these are all quite salt tolerant plantings as well. So any kind of salt spray from storms or because it is so close to the water, we wanted to take into consideration that everything we were planting here would be resilient in the landscape. So you can see on the plan that the major grass that we've used in the bioretention area is Panicum virgatum shenandoah, which is a switchgrass. And then we have woven in with that black-eyed Susans, Russian sage, purple coneflower, baby Joe pieweed in the wettest portions, and Augustaceae blue fortune. So these all create kind of a tapestry of color through here, along with the textural grasses that will, which will help to mitigate the stormwater as it's filtering through that biofilter area. And then on other parts of the property, we have, do you have the other, is this the full plant list? I think there's another sheet that includes images of all the plantings that we're planning on using here. We have white dogwoods, native plantings in the back, as well as very salt tolerant shade trees, also with the London plane trees. We are using soft and long blooming hydrangeas as well. And you can see the myriad of grasses across the bottom that we're including in various places on the plan, as well as a variety of perennials, which are also very durable in this area. If you go back to the plan, we've also provided along the road a hedge along the property line at the road for some screening from cars, and at the bottom of the retaining wall that holds the front viewing terrace. Again, those are all native grasses, and we also have some evergreen shrubs in this area as well, so that it has winter interest as well as summer interest. And then in the back, behind the pool area, again, there's a beautiful layering of native plantings. The two trees you see on either side there are white dogwoods. And then we have lots of fern and astilbe, as well as some rhododendrons, which are going to back up some existing rhododendrons. So we've tried to kind of keep with the same feeling of the current property. But that is basically the plan. On the left side of the property, also I should mention, where the driveway, the neighbor's driveway is, we're providing evergreen screening all along this side. There is one large existing evergreen or two in there that we are maintaining, and then we are filling in again with evergreens to provide some screening for the neighbor on that side. And then everything that takes you around to the back side of the property, we have an access path here, and that's a very shady area. So all the plants in that area are shade tolerant plantings. Any questions?
No, it looks beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't see where the lacrosse ball is, but it looks beautiful. Do any commissioners have any questions on this application? Larry's okay. George is okay. Jen Leahy's okay.
Yep, okay.
And Jim Rand's okay. Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? Fred, you got anybody in the chat box or throwing their hands up or that kind of stuff? Okay. Looks like a beautiful new house.
I will interject that the neighbor to the north.
You're Mr. Pagliaro, you're the architect, right, sir?
I'm sorry, Christopher Pagliaro, Architects, 320 Post Road, Darien. Thank you. The neighbor to the north expressed, I don't want to say concern. He asked what was going to happen to his view, and we walked the property with him last week. We actually used little utility flags to lay it out, and we brought a tape measure for the height, and it's Mr. Phillips, and he was satisfied. He seemed satisfied with the results, and I guess that's why he didn't express it this evening.
What's his address, by the way, Mr. Phillips?
I think it's 92 by my river.
Okay, he is 5 Mile River Road too? Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. I think we're good. Anything else to add, Doug, before we look to close this?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered everything. And then Chris discussed that we had a discussion with a neighbor, and the diagram that's on the board on the screen right now demonstrates that our house is a little behind their house and not really blocking any of their views. So I think we're good.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that said, I'd like to entertain a motion to close. Jennifer Leahy makes the motion, Jim Riley makes the second. All those in favor? Jim Rand, I'm sorry.
Jim Moran, 5-0.
5-0. Fantastic. One more to go.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Talk to you in a couple of weeks.
You got it.
Next item on the agenda is land filling and regrading application number 501 93 Old Kings Highway, Old Kings Highway Properties, LLC, 93 Old Kings Highway South. Proposal to regrade the property near a new driveway area, construction of retaining walls and stormwater management, perform related site development activities. Be 0.1 plus or minus acres. Property is located on the south side of Old Kings Highway South, approximately 100 feet east of the intersection with Hollister Lane. Shown on Assessor's map number 63 as lot 80 in the R1 half zone. Jeremy, what do we got?
Sure, you can see, if you've been to the property, you can see that the house is now under construction. Mr. King looked at the zoning and building permit, and the house met all the local requirements. But he did mention to the applicant if you need to redo any regrading work in the house, or very to a property, planning and zoning review in action. They are here tonight, the property owners, represented by Linda Vanzo, engineer from Fairfield County Engineering, who submitted a plan last revised March 25th, 2021, which shows not only the proposed regrading, the associated drainage that was approved as part of the house, and Mr. DeVanzo is here to explain how the grades work and how that any runoff really affect any neighbors and the areas that they're regrading near the property line. Mr. DeVanzo, take it away.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good evening. For the record, Wayne DeVanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. I have a screen share if I can get it to work.
Wait, no, don't touch your microphone's off if you care. I mean, you're not microphone, your camera's off. That's okay though.
Yes, it is off. It's I had to have to. It's very poor lighting in here. You I don't think you'd see much. So I'm sorry about that. My apologies. But can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, this application is for the area of grading that I'm showing with the cursor, basically, that is more than 25 feet away from the house. It had originally been proposed to be a retaining wall there, and I guess the prospective buyer doesn't like the idea of pulling in and having a 5 or 6 foot drop off, and despite that it would have obviously a guide rail and fence, but they're concerned, it just makes them uncomfortable. So the builder would like to grade this out as shown with a more gradual slope around here. And again, that is more than 25 feet away from the house. The existing grade is basically to the south from the road down to the rear of the property to the low area here. There's basically a ridge across the bottom part of the property. So it creates a sort of a natural basin, which we're taking more advantage of and making a rain garden there. So this proposed grading, isn't altering any of the drainage pattern. It's continuing to flow to the south. The neighbor to the west is slightly higher. If you can see, there's a 61 contour here, and there's slightly higher here to flat as you get closer to the road. And again, it doesn't really affect anybody on any other side. So this is the proposed grading, and this is to eliminate, the retaining walls over there, and the driveway is also a little wider for a little better vehicular maneuvering. And we're providing retention in this area for really all the impervious surface, or virtually all the impervious surface of the property, the entire house, and this area that you can see in green of the driveway is routed to that retention system, which is a little elaborate. It's a series of Caltex, which then overflows to this approximately 1,200 cubic foot rain garden, which is the ultimate volume that receives everything. And any runoff that would come from the higher areas on that side from the road would also eventually make their way into that rain garden. And that's essentially it.
Wayne, can you talk a little bit about that rain garden? Is a small depression in the yard, and that area is actually lower than the neighbor, I'll call it to the
Yes,
west.
that's correct. Yeah, the bottom of that rain garden is at elevation 56, and the the neighbor is at 58 to 60.
That's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. And again, that's it's going to a fairly large underground retention system before it even gets to that. That's just getting the overflow from the cul-de-sacs that are above it.
Where's the rain garden?
Yeah, the cul-de-sacs are here.
Yeah. Okay. Does any commissioner have any questions on this application? It's an approved house. It's under construction, ready to go. There's just been some tweaks to the site plan. George Riley's okay. Jeffrey's okay. Larry Warble's okay. Jennifer's okay. Everyone have a big smile.
There might be a member of the public here.
Okay. Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application?
Yes, I'd just like to ask a question.
Sure, Jack. Just state
one-
your name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Yes, Jackie Fitzpatrick, Hollister Lane, for our backyard borders the property.
I see you
That
right
was,
there, my plan. Yep, welcome.
Thank you. I'm just one question though. Below the rain garden, will there be drainage? Maybe French drain or gravel pit and piping water? Or what is the proposal there?
Good, Wayne, a question for you, sir.
Yeah, no, there's nothing proposed south of the rain garden. The topography is going to really remain. It's really going to remain untouched. Everything south of that, there's sort of a ridge across there. Maybe just move this a little better. You might be able to see it. Yeah, I'm not sure how to manipulate it. Okay, yeah. This is sort of this is a high point right across here, and we're not touching anything, south of this area that I'm sort of indicating. There's nothing that's going to get that far really. Again, all of the runoff is going into the cul-de-sacs, and then the rain garden, which is rather voluminous. If you see these contour lines, even this one farther up is lower than anything over here. So this is all higher grade. So there's no drainage south of that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Just to re-answer the question, I think the rain gardens overflow from the cul-de-sac chamber systems, correct?
Correct.
And then the base of the rain garden just rocks and just loose dirt?
Well, the base of the rain garden would be a rain garden mix of sand and mulch and topsoil, a foot thick.
Right.
So it would, percolate into the native soil from there. Yeah.
That's what I thought. And in terms of size, it's 20 by 20, something like that, 10 by 10?
I think it's a little bigger than that. It's a little over 1,200 cubic feet in capacity. I'm not sure the area.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry, Jake, any other questions, ma'am? Mrs. Fitzpatrick?
Yes. Oh, can I just ask too, there's a very, very large silver maple tree. Will this tree go into shock once this area is being dug? And my question would be, we just don't want it weaken and fall and topple over. Because it must have a massive root system.
Where's this tree?
Yeah, I'm not sure where the tree is located relative to. There's no tree showed on the survey, so it's hard to say where that particular tree would be.
Do you know where it might be, Mrs. Fitzpatrick?
Right, it is down near the the rain garden that you were just proposing. Right.
In this area somewhere.
Down a little bit further.
Here?
Yeah. Right. A little bit more.
Here,
Yeah, right.
maybe?
Back there.
Yeah, that's outside of really what should be the limit of disturbance for that. So, you know, if it's there or a little farther south, it should be, I would think it should be okay. We're not disturbing in that area at least.
Okay.
This would be you right here, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the silt fence, right? If you can see right there. That's sort of the
Right.
corner of the silt fence.
I know just from the sketch, it just looks it's a little bit closer to the rain garden. So that's just a fear that I had. I was just wondering about.
Yeah, it looks like you definitely care about the roots, but it looks like it's outside the silt fence. And I don't know the roots of that. Was that okay, Mrs. Fitzpatrick?
All right, maybe it's something when the builder comes over, you know, so we can walk it together. But that was, you know, it's just a natural concern there.
Okay. Who is it? Wayne, would you be adverse to us telling you to put protection around that tree?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. So we'll wrap that tree in some kind of typical tree protection.
Tree protection, sure. Yeah. And I'll relate it to the builder to make sure he's aware of it and talk to the neighbor. Yeah.
That'd be great. Is that okay with you, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes, that is fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
With that said, I think that's everybody from the public. Entertain a motion to close this hearing. We're good. So George Riley making the motion. Oh, looking for a second. Jim Ryan. Yep, there we go. All the 4-5-0. Pretty close. Great. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
We're done. All set, Wayne. Good job. All right, the next item. Holy smokes. I can see that. Okay, next item we have is we're going to go into the general meeting now. So that's the end of the public hearing. Deliberations and possible decision on the following. Special permit application number 258, Bees and Boy, La Taqueria Inc. at Darien Place LLC, 1077 Boston Post Road. This is the proposed restaurant, which is in the last vacant space inside the rear section of the old Darien Playhouse. We have a draft resolution in hand. Questions, comments, scrivener's errors? George Riley's always goes first. Yes, sir.
Only to say I'm out, and I'll catch you in 2 minutes.
You're recused. That's right. All right, so that means it leaves up to Jim Rand.
No comments.
It's pretty straightforward to me. It's a small restaurant with a couple of things. Amy Zabatakis presented it. I think Joe Vaccaro was there and John Vaccaro was there. I'm okay. If anybody has any questions, comments, errors, we'll take them. With that said, I take it, entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Jim Rand made the motion. Jennifer Leahy made a second. All those in favor?
4-0.
4-0. Bingo. Thank you. You're all set, Joe Vaccaro. Next time on the agenda, landfilling excavation and regrading application number 145, Dees and David, Jean and Tracy Sykes at 5 Homewood Lane. Extension of time to begin work. We got a letter in the file dated May 17th, my friend's birthday, to asking for, how much time are they asking for?
1 year.
1 year, effective June 21st. We typically really offer these things without a whole lot of questions.
George Riley's back, just for the record.
George Riley's back.
Thank you.
Any questions on this one, folks? Nope. We're just going to entertain a motion to approve this as requested. that really a thing? Jennifer said yes. Larry Warble seconded. All in favor? Okay.
5-0 for 1 year.
Yep, 1 year for Mrs. Sake. Okay. Do you mind if we punt the minutes?
Yep.
I'm getting
That's fine.
tired. Okay. The next, we're gonna pass on the minutes for next meeting, and then I just want to give you a couple of chairman's items come up. One thing that came up is, if you guys didn't know or didn't hear, Susan Schultz, who's been our reporter for the Darien Times, retired. I think last week was her last thing. She, in my opinion, is invaluable to the town of Darien and to the Planning and Zoning Commission. She definitely got the word out on a lot of our applications. Came to 90% of our meetings and watched all the stuff. So hopefully the next person that covers the P&Z Commission will have the same kind of dialogue with us, because I think she did a great job and she helps us to get the word out to the general public. We will miss her. She was good. Right down the middle of the road too. Just as an aside, they're having a going away party for her, I think Friday at the Grove Street Plaza. I think it's 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock.
Oh.
I don't know who's throwing it together, but I got an email. It's on Facebook or something like that. So it said Terry Wood's going to be there and Jamie Stevens going to be there to give her a proclamation. Okay. I
don't think she's retiring. She might not like you saying that. I think she's been
Yeah,
kicked
no, she's not,
upstairs.
you're 100% correct. She is not retiring. She's moving into marketing or something like that for Hearst Communications. But she's not going to be the editor of Darien Times anymore. She has 2 kids, so she's not retiring. The other item I just want to go over really quick and then give you a little update. Last Thursday up in Hartford, they passed a housing bill. I do not know the number of the housing bill. I think it's 6,000 something.
6130 maybe, George?
Might be 6130, something like that. Actually,
I think the House passed it, but not the Senate.
right. What is it? It's 6107. Anyway, the bills come out and things change. I looked at it. Jeremy looked at it. There was a bunch of amendments. It passed. It passed the House. We didn't really do a deep dive into it yet, but I did speak to Terry Wood. Terry Wood voted against it, and Matt Blumenthal voted for it. Terry Wood said that she would come to a subsequent meeting and give us a total rundown on this bill, on what came out of it, what came into it, at one of our next meetings when it's mutual convenient for the 2 of us. I have to send her some dates. If Terry Wood's going to do it, we should probably also extend to Matt Blumenthal too.
Yep.
I did not speak to Matt Blumenthal about it though. I'm not going to get into too much about it right now. The only thing I can tell you is that the ADU provision that was in one of the other drafts is now an opt-in, opt-out. So I think it's by 2/3 of the legislative body. The town can opt into the state ADU division provision or opt out of it. As we've already discussed a couple different times, Darien's going to do their own. We're going to do our own probably the fall or in the summer, something like that. The TOD part, a lot of that stuff got taken out in whole. The part that is in there is some commissioner training. I think it's out to 4 hours every 2 years.
Correct.
And there was another snowball item that I think is still in there. I forget what it is. Oh, character. The word character got stricken from a lot of the planning and zoning items. So hopefully someone's going to give us a big download that voted on it, studied the bill backwards and forwards in the next meeting. And I think that's it for me. The only other thing I want to say is that, for all the commissioners, I think we did it relative to getting through this pandemic. All this 6-foot social distancing stuff is ended. All of our restaurants survived. We didn't lose any. It's a big shout out to, I think, everybody for supporting our restaurants and getting them to outdoor dining, getting them the tents and getting the tables apart. Because as of this weekend, all that stuff goes away. We still have outdoor dining for a lot of our restaurants that through the year, and some of our restaurants are building permanent structures such as 1020. So I think we did well. And Right now, we have one vacant store left in town of Darien, which is on the Post Road, which is Brooks Brothers. There's a big sign on the window that says for rent. So if anyone is a broker and wants to rent a space, you got a space. That's it for me. It is 9:45. Any other business requires 2/3 vote. I don't think we have anything else we want to talk about. If anybody has any questions for me or Jeremy, you can shoot those up. Our next meeting is June 1st, 2021. Do you know what we're doing
It's
then?
a full public hearing night, the continuation of the Parklands application and 3 applications on Long Neck Point Road. Coastal
Okay.
site plans, things like that. And that's June 1st, and then June 8th, public hearings on the commission proposals.
So we have Memorial Day. We have no time off. We have not had a day off.
Well, and then after that, you get a week off.
Okay. Can
Which
you
week
want to?
off?
June 15th.
So we have, I think that's 7 weeks in a row or 8 weeks in a row.
Yeah, we're trying to get more weeks off. So you get off June 15th, June 29th, July 6th.
Terry would ask me to send her some dates.
Okay.
Our next
So we
dates.
can, so I'll work with you and Terry.
Yeah.
Maybe July 8th might be a good date for Terry.
Okay, that sounds fantastic.
I just, because I already know my schedule, if anyone else is planning, I'm definitely not here July 6th. And I am either flying back
We don't have a meeting July 6th.
or the 13th. Okay, cool.
13th.
Okay. We're off that day. Congratulations. All right, with that said, looking for a motion to adjourn. Jim Rand in the game. Looking for a second. Jen Leahy with the big smile. All the flavor. There we go. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
See
it
y'all.
sounds like. Happy Memorial Day, all. Thank
Happy
you.
Memorial Day.
Enjoy the merch.
Thank you.